Have you ever wished you could move through life untouched by the chaos around you? Imagine facing insults, misunderstandings, and setbacks, not with anger or fear, but with a calm, steady presence. In today's world, we're surrounded by noise, judgment, and constant demands on our attention. It's easy to get swept away. But there is another way. The ancient Stoics lived in times of political turmoil, personal loss, and constant uncertainty. Yet, they discovered principles that allowed them to remain grounded, clear-minded, and unshaken. Their wisdom wasn't abstract philosophy, it was practical training for the mind. Just as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago. In this journey, we'll explore 7 timeless lessons from Stoicism, tools for mastering your emotions, guarding your energy, and finding peace in a restless world. Whether you're facing daily stress, difficult people, or your own inner battles, these lessons can help you rise above. So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin walking this path together, toward the quiet strength that no storm can shake. Lesson 1. Emotional discipline. Have you ever felt a sudden wave of anger just from a single careless remark? Or found yourself spiraling into anxiety because someone didn't reply to your message? Maybe you've carried the weight of a disapproving glance all day, letting it color everything else you did. If so, you're not weak, you're simply untrained. The truth is, life will keep throwing judgment, rejection, misunderstanding, and disappointment at you. Those waves never stop coming. But you can learn to stand steady when they crash. That's what Stoicism offers, not a shield that blocks life's storms, but a skill set that teaches you how to master the storm within. Being unbothered is not a natural gift, it's a skill. No one is born immune to insult or rejection. Even the strongest people feel hurt. But Stoics understand that emotions don't automatically control us. We grant them that power. The question is not whether we feel something, but how far we allow that feeling to carry us. If you want to stay steady, start by disciplining your own mind, not the people or the world around you. Don't wish for a softer world so you can be more comfortable. Make yourself strong enough to remain calm even when the world is sharp. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've built the ability to pause between stimulus and response. Think of it as controlling the gate to your mind. Most of our reactions aren't caused by what actually happens. They come from expectations we never acknowledged. Someone doesn't reply, and you feel abandoned. Someone forgets to compliment you, and you feel invisible. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence, and you feel disrespected. These events have no real meaning until we assign them one, and often we assign them the meaning of being hurt. So, who is truly causing your pain? Them or you? Seneca once wrote, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." The person who masters their emotions doesn't need to win every argument, correct every misunderstanding, or retaliate against every insult. They become selective, careful about what deserves their energy. Anger may feel strong, but it only proves someone else can make you lose control. Each time you lose your temper, you hand over the steering wheel of your life. Here's a Stoic exercise. The next time someone provokes you, instead of reacting instantly, count 3 slow breaths. Ask yourself, will my reaction serve my values? Or will it just feed my ego? This tiny pause can be the difference between escalation and calm. The Stoics believed that self-mastery begins here, by reclaiming agency in moments when chaos hits. When others raise their voices, you lower yours. When provoked, you remain still. When misunderstood, you don't rush to explain to everyone, not because you don't care, but because you've decided what is truly worth caring about. Take the story of David, a lawyer, sharp, rational, but easily rattled. Every time a colleague dismissed his opinion, he spiraled into resentment. They don't respect me. They're playing politics. By the end of the day, he was exhausted from keeping up the act. One day, in a minor hearing, a younger colleague accused him of breaking protocol. Normally, David would have snapped back. Instead, he looked at the person, said nothing, and continued presenting his case. Later, when asked why he stayed silent, he replied, "I didn't want to waste energy on something that wasn't going to change anything." That was the turning point. He realized calm isn't giving up, it's rising above. Another exercise worth practicing. At the end of each day, write one sentence. Choose what's worth reacting to. Keep that as your guiding principle. It's not about hours of meditation or pretending you don't care. It's about watching yourself closely. What throws you off balance? Who has the power to make you feel small? And why did you give them that power? Emotional discipline is not about ignoring injustice. Stoics never advocated for tolerating what is wrong. They simply refused to let blind anger replace reason. They respond out of principle, not pride, from values, not impulse. That's why they are strong. This is perhaps the hardest training of all. To stay in control of yourself when everything around you is pulling you out of yourself. But when you do, you become a still point in a spinning world. People will sense it without you saying a word. So, how do you begin? First, accept that hurt is real, but reacting impulsively is a choice. Second, practice awareness before action. Imagine your mind as a calm harbor. The storms will come, but you decide which ships, thoughts, words, emotions are allowed to dock. Finally, remember, you don't need to attend every battle you're invited to. Some are simply not worth the cost. In the end, emotional discipline is about reclaiming your life from the grip of every passing emotion. It's about becoming, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, like the rock against which the surf crashes, standing unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it. And when you can do that, you'll understand what it means to be truly unbothered, not because nothing affects you, but because you have trained yourself to choose your response with clarity, strength, and peace. Lesson 2. The power of silence. Silence is not passive. It is deliberate. It is a quiet, inner nod that says, I refuse to give the outside world permission to dictate my inner state. In today's noisy, reactive culture, this is not weakness, it is strength. And once you begin to practice silence as a life skill, something remarkable happens. Not only do you find more peace, but you also begin to see the true colors of people around you. Silence creates space, and in that space, truth often emerges. Think about it. When someone attacks you with words, are they truly looking for understanding? Or are they seeking your reaction, hoping to pull you down to their level where emotion overrides reason? The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind. not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In moments of provocation, silence is not retreat. It is a refusal to play a game that will only leave you covered in mud. After all, no one walks away clean from a fight in the mud. Have you ever reacted simply for the sake of reacting? Not because your words would change anything, but because you couldn't stand the thought of being misunderstood or disrespected. Each time you give in to that impulse, you are trading away your calm, something far more valuable than any temporary sense of victory. Anger and defensiveness can feel powerful in the moment, but they leave you drained, and they rarely improve the situation. Consider Ethan's story. He was a talented employee at a tech firm, quick-witted and skilled, but easily rattled by sarcasm and veiled criticism. After a restructuring, he found himself under a domineering manager who often made cutting remarks. At first, Ethan fought back, using logic to corner his boss in meetings. What did that win him? No applause, no allies, only isolation. Every time he won an argument, he lost a bit more ground in the relationships that mattered. Eventually, Ethan tried a different approach. During one tense meeting, his manager made another jab. Instead of responding, Ethan simply looked up, nodded, and kept taking notes. No drama, no loss of dignity. Later that day, his manager sent a short email. "I appreciate your professionalism." Ethan learned an important truth. He did not have to react to be respected. Here's a Stoic exercise you can try. Choose one day each week when you will only respond to words or situations that genuinely help you grow. The rest, let pass like the wind. At first, this feels difficult. Your ego will demand to correct, to defend, to explain. But with practice, you'll notice a shift. You'll save your energy for battles that matter and leave the rest behind. Living in a world where people speak more than they think, silence becomes a statement. It says, "I am not here to play emotional games. I am here to live with purpose." And when you stop reacting to every provocation, you begin to respond with clarity. Not everything said about you needs a rebuttal. Not every misunderstanding needs to be untangled. Some battles exist only in the minds of others, and you do not need to step into them. Of course, silence does not mean ignoring injustice or avoiding responsibility. Stoics did not turn a blind eye to wrongs. They acted when principle required it. But they understood the cost of constant reaction. By refusing to engage in every petty conflict, you preserve the strength to respond when it truly matters. So, the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Ask yourself, will speaking here bring more light or just more heat? If it's only heat, let your silence speak instead. Over time, you will see that silence is not emptiness, it is space. Space for wisdom, space for calm, space for strength, and in that space, you will find yourself unshaken by the noise around you. Lesson 3. Heal to stop reacting. No one can truly hurt you unless there's already a wound inside you. What others say is, in reality, just sound. What turns those words into a blade is the unresolved memory it strikes, the pain you've been carrying quietly. Often without realizing it, most of the time, what we call a reaction isn't about the present moment at all. It's the resurfacing of old hurt, unprocessed experiences that are still shaping our behavior today. Healing, in the Stoic sense, is not a dramatic emotional purge, nor is it about forcing forgiveness before you're ready. It is an act of intellectual discipline. It's the courage to look closely at your inner machinery, to see why certain things trigger you, and to gently begin loosening their grip. You don't need to erase negative emotions or become a lifeless stone. That's not Stoicism. Instead, Stoicism teaches you to be aware enough to feel emotion rising, without being swept away by it. Imagine an experienced swordsman. He no longer draws his blade for every insult or threat. He has seen enough battles to understand what happens when a reaction is driven by impulse. Likewise, a person who has trained their mind can watch emotions rise and fall without needing to act on each one. You are not free if your mind reacts like a machine, automatically responding to every perceived offense. And the hard truth is, many of us live exactly like this. Why does a careless comment make you so angry? Why does being ignored fill you with anxiety? Often, the answer lies in your past. Maybe you feel disrespected because, as a child, your voice was dismissed or silenced. Maybe you panic when a message goes unread because you were once abandoned or forgotten. In those moments, you think you're reacting to what's happening now. But in reality, you're reliving an old wound. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the part of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, which therefore controls us from beneath the surface. Healing means bringing that shadow into the light, not to punish it, but to understand it. You might say to yourself, this is why I get angry. This is the wound I haven't yet addressed. Marcus Aurelius felt sadness, anger, and loneliness too. He wrote them down in his asterisk meditations. Not to complain, but to seek clarity. He understood that what stands in the way becomes tea. Here's a Stoic exercise. The next time you feel triggered, instead of defending yourself or lashing out, pause, breathe deeply, trace the emotion to its source. Ask, what pain in me is this pointing to? This shift in focus, from blaming others to understanding yourself, is one of the most powerful forms of healing. Eliot's story is a vivid example. He was an introvert working in a competitive creative agency. One day, his boss told him he was too soft to survive in this industry. Outwardly, Eliot stayed calm, but inside, his hands trembled, his mind stormed. That night, instead of snapping at his partner or numbing himself with distractions, he traced his reaction back. He remembered his father's voice. Real men don't get soft. As a child, he had learned to hide his emotions, to stay silent. Anyone who touched tea. From that realization, Eliot began a new practice. Whenever he was criticized, he asked himself, does this reaction belong to the present, or is it an echo of an old wound? Over time, this awareness rewired his responses. What once triggered rage or shame began to lose its hold. He learned that the emotion wasn't wrong, it simply needed to be understood before it could be released. This is not an easy path. Observing your inner world is harder than any workout or diet. It demands that you face discomfort without running from it. Yet the reward is freedom. Freedom from the invisible strings that others can pull without your consent. When you heal, you no longer react automatically. You choose your response. You act, not from unhealed pain, but from clarity. Ask yourself, do you want to keep living on autopilot, reacting from old scars? Or do you want to become the author of your own responses? Real power is not force. It's the ability to stay grounded when the past tries to drag you into the present. As the Stoics remind us, no one can pull you out of your peace unless you let them. And here is another exercise to protect that peace. Before you engage with anything that stirs you up, ask, is this worth my energy? Energy, like time, is finite. If you spend it on unworthy battles, you'll have little left for the things that truly matter. Sometimes, the most powerful choice you can make is to let something pass without a fight. Healing is not about becoming untouchable, it's about becoming unshakable. It's not that the storms won't come, it's that you'll no longer be thrown off course by every gust of wind. Over time, the situations that once robbed you of sleep or peace will barely cause a ripple. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. In the end, healing in the Stoic tradition is about integration. You take the wounded parts of yourself, understand them, and weave them into a stronger whole. You stop being a prisoner to your past, and instead, you use your past as training. Each moment of awareness becomes a step toward mastery. And mastery, here, is not dominance over others, it's self-possession. So, when the next trigger comes, and it will, remember, you have a choice. You can fall into the same reflexive reaction, or you can pause, breathe, and meet it with the strength of someone who knows themselves. That, more than anything, is the healing that stops you from reacting. It's the quiet triumph of a mind at peace with itself. Lesson 4. Energy is an asset. You don't need a dramatic conflict to feel drained. Sometimes, it's enough to have 3 unresolved conversations looping in your mind. 2 judgments you haven't responded to, and 1 quiet frustration no one else even knows about. The deepest exhaustion rarely comes from doing too much, it comes from not knowing when to stop. It comes from failing to set boundaries against things that don't deserve your energy. The ability to remain grounded doesn't start with becoming cold or detached. It begins with becoming the gatekeeper of your own energy. Many people think Stoicism is about controlling emotions first. But in truth, it begins even earlier, with controlling where your energy flows. Every time you think, I need to respond so they understand, or I can't just let this slide, or I can't stand that attitude, it's not just emotion speaking. It's energy leaking. We guard our money carefully. We protect our homes and reputations. We're mindful of our physical safety. And yet, we can be reckless with our mental and emotional energy, allowing it to be drained by things that add nothing of value to our lives. Seneca didn't use the word energy in the modern sense. But his wisdom still applies. He who is everywhere is nowhere. When you scatter your attention across too many battles, you lose the focus needed for what truly matters. And to the Stoics, the most important, imagine having a fixed budget of mental energy each day, not dollars, but moments of attention and clarity. If you spend it on passive-aggressive glances, on arguments with stubborn people, on scrolling through toxic comments, and on explaining yourself to someone who has already decided not to listen, you'll reach the end of the day empty. And nothing will be left for the work, the relationships, and the inner growth that truly matter. Stillness, in the Stoic sense, is not simply the result of meditation or isolation. It comes from energy discipline, the conscious choice to invest your attention where it will bear fruit. Richard's story shows this clearly. He was always running, mentally if not physically. His thoughts darted between work deadlines, social media feeds, imaginary conversations with an ex, and an unspoken fear of being forgotten. Outwardly, life looked fine. Inwardly, he was stretched thin. It wasn't until chronic insomnia landed him in the hospital that Richard began to see the truth. Doctors found nothing wrong physically, but Richard realized the cause: invisible drains on his mind. One night, he wrote 2 lists: what nourishes me and what drains me. The results were shocking. 80% of his fatigue came from a small number of situations he silently tolerated every single day. They weren't dramatic blow-ups. They were subtle distractions stealing his focus, his creativity, and, from then on, Richard began shutting doors, one by one. No messages after 10 p.m., blocking toxic content, reducing unnecessary conversations. He didn't become distant. Paradoxically, he became more connected to himself than ever before. Here's a Stoic exercise. At the start of the week, make your own 2 lists: nourishers and drainers. Keep it simple. Each night, review the day and note where your energy went. Did you spend it on things that align with your values? Or did you hand it over to situations that left you weaker? This awareness alone can change the way you live. Ask yourself, who is using my energy without permission? How many of my actions are driven not by necessity, but by fear of disappointing others? Am I trading my peace to protect an image I don't even believe in anymore? Stoicism reminds us that some things are within our control, and some are not, and strangely, we are most exhausted not by carrying what is ours, but by trying to carry what is not. Someone's opinion of you, their misunderstanding, their false assumptions. The Stoics would tell you, return those burdens to their rightful owner. If someone treats you poorly, that is theirs to carry. If someone doesn't understand you, that's their limitation. When you feel the urge to respond, to correct, to set the record straight, pause, ask, will this use of energy help me grow in wisdom, in character, in peace? If the answer is no, let it pass like an uninvited cloud drifting by. To stop being easily disturbed, decide first what is important enough to deserve the right to disturb you. Your mind is sacred ground. You wouldn't leave your front door open for strangers to wander in. So why leave the door to your inner life open to every careless comment or petty provocation? If you find yourself reacting immediately to anything upsetting, try this simple practice. Pause for 3 seconds before you respond. In that space, you may discover what the Stoics knew, that not every emotion deserves an action. Not every provocation merits a reply. Energy is your most vital resource. Once spent, it cannot be reclaimed. Guard it with the same care you guard your health, your safety, and your time. Direct it toward what is truly worthy. And remember, a calm mind is not built by winning every fight, but by knowing which fights are worth entering at all. Lesson 5. You don't need to be understood. There's a quiet freedom in letting go of the need to be understood. For many of us, this is not easy. We are wired to seek validation, to want our intentions to be seen clearly, our motives to be recognized, and our actions to be approved. Yet, in the Stoic view, clinging to this need is a trap. When your peace depends on how others interpret you, You hand over control of your inner life to forces you cannot govern. People will misunderstand you. They will misinterpret your words through the filter of their own biases, past wounds, and expectations. Even if you speak with perfect clarity, what they hear is often an echo of their own experience. And if you resist this truth, if you insist on fighting every misunderstanding, you will find yourself constantly unsettled. The Stoics knew that peace begins where the need for control ends. This is not about apathy or resignation. It's about discipline, choosing where to invest your limited energy. As Epictetus taught, we must separate what is within our control from what is not. Someone else's understanding of you belongs to the latter category. Your words, your choices, and your actions, these are yours. Their interpretations, their opinions, these are theirs. Consider Malcolm's story. For nearly a decade, he worked as a strategic advisor for international NGOs. He lived by one principle: clarity earns respect. He listened carefully, communicated deliberately, and sought mutual understanding in all his work. But during a critical collaboration, he discovered an ethical flaw in the plan. When he spoke up, instead of being thanked, he was accused of being too idealistic and difficult. The criticism was harsh and came quickly. For the first time, Malcolm did not defend himself. He didn't justify, didn't explain. He quietly withdrew from the project, moved to another city, and opened an independent consulting firm. "I no longer need to be understood," he said. "I just need to stay true to myself." That choice wasn't easy, but for the first time, Malcolm felt the relief of not having to bargain away his truth for someone else's approval. And that's the heart of this lesson. Who you are is built by your actions, not by the acceptance or agreement of others. Here's a Stoic exercise. The next time you feel compelled to explain yourself, pause. Ask, will explaining change the truth? Or am I only seeking to ease my discomfort at being misread? If the answer is the latter, consider remaining silent. Let your actions speak over time. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." Living without the constant need to be understood means accepting that some people will label your rest as laziness, your boundaries as selfishness, your independence as arrogance. And yet, you rest anyway. You set those boundaries. You walk your own path. Because the price of tailoring your life to please every observer is far too high, it costs you your authenticity. This discipline requires a willingness to let go of control over the narrative others hold about you. You cannot rewrite their story in which you appear, but you can write your own with integrity. Ask yourself, am I living in alignment with my values? Am I making choices I can stand behind without regret? If the answer is yes, then the misunderstanding of others loses its weight. When you are misjudged, misquoted, or misread, your ego will urge you to set the record straight. But here is the truth. The world will not stop spinning because someone sees you incorrectly. And you cannot wait for universal understanding before living fully. As the Stoics remind us, strength lies in reclaiming your mind from the grip of others' opinions. So, choose the pause. Choose silence over self-defense when defense serves nothing but pride. Let your life's work, your character, and your quiet consistency tell the story words never could. Over time, those who matter will see. Those who never intended to will remain unchanged, and that's fine. In the end, your peace is worth more than their approval. Your integrity is worth more than their agreement. You don't need to be understood to be whole. You need only to live in a way that you yourself can understand and respect. Lesson 6. Feeling doesn't mean reacting. There is something curious about being human. We can build cities, send rockets into space, and harness the power of technology. Yet we can be completely undone by a single hurtful comment. One raised eyebrow, one sarcastic remark, and suddenly we feel as if the ground has shifted beneath us. But the Stoics remind us of a liberating truth. Emotions are not commands. They are signals, not orders. Emotions rise like clouds moving across the sky, sometimes bright and light, sometimes heavy and dark. They come and go, but if we steer our lives according to every shifting cloud, we lose our way. The natural instinct, when a strong emotion flares, is to react immediately, to defend, to attack, to prove a point. Yet Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. Pause, observe, and choose. Why is it that a stranger's rude comment can send us into a spiral, while we hold our tongue when our boss says the exact same thing? Deep down, we already know we are capable of controlling our reactions. We just choose to do it selectively. But what if restraint wasn't something we saved for certain situations? What if we saw it as a form of strength in all situations? Andrew's story offers a real example. At 40, he was a software manager with years of experience, but also years of private battles with depression and the aftermath of past outbursts. In a meeting, a colleague openly called him indecisive and slow. Heat surged through his body. His instinct was to slam the table and fire back. But he didn't, not because he was afraid, but because he had learned, through therapy and daily readings of Marcus Aurelius, that anger never solves anything. So, he looked the call. In that moment, some thought Andrew looked weak. But he knew the truth. He had defended himself without losing himself. He had chosen his response rather than letting the situation dictate it. That, in Stoic terms, is real power. Here's a Stoic exercise. The next time someone irritates you, imagine your emotion as a knock at the door. Acknowledge it. I see you, but remember, you are not obligated to let it in. Let the knock fade without opening the door. This small mental practice creates a space between what you feel and what you do. Many people confuse reacting with honesty, believing that to hold back is to be false. But honesty does not require servitude to every passing emotion. A strong person is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who knows when silence speaks more clearly. This silence is not avoidance. It is the highest form of action, refusing to let others control your inner state. Ask yourself, does my reaction serve my values? Or is it just my ego scrambling to reassert control? Will my words bring clarity, or only add to the noise? The Bible puts it simply in Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 9. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Anger makes us predictable, easy to manipulate. Restraint makes us free. Over time, practicing this discipline changes the very texture of your daily life. You stop living in a constant state of reaction and begin living by choice. You respond when it matters and stay silent when it doesn't. The chaos around you becomes background noise, and you carry an inner calm that no passing storm can shake. In the end, feeling does not mean you must react. The emotion is real, but the action is yours to choose. And that choice, repeated over days, months, and years, becomes the foundation of a life lived with strength, clarity, and peace. Lesson 7. Value lies in action. If you still need the world to validate that you are doing the right thing, you are not yet standing on steady ground. Not because you are wrong, but because your sense of worth is still tethered to something outside yourself. The Stoics would say this is dangerous territory. If your peace depends on recognition, then your peace is vulnerable. True strength comes when your worth is anchored so deeply within that no one can give it to you and no one can take it away. Stoicism doesn't teach indifference, it teaches rootedness. When your actions align with what you believe is right, the noise of the outside world becomes background. You don't chase applause, nor do you crumble under criticism, because you know where your value lies. And value, in the Stoic sense, is never a title you give yourself or something others bestow. It's what remains when the speeches, explanations, and justifications are stripped away. It's the evidence left in your choices. Look at the last thing you did yesterday when no one was watching. That, more than any words, is who you are. We live in an age of grand declarations, posts about courage from those who stay silent when it matters, claims of integrity from those who compromise when tested. We are not disturbed because the world is too loud. We are disturbed because we are not yet clear within ourselves. When you place your value in action, something shifts. You stop needing reactions. You let go of the craving for someone to tell you that you're okay. You act not from numbness, but from clarity. The person who no longer battles themselves has no reason to be shaken by the world. Thomas's story illustrates this truth. An independent game developer, he worked for 3 years in a small, cramped room, no investors, no audience, no online hype. He wrote code, sketched graphics, crafted dialogue, all without fanfare. Some told him he was wasting his time, but Thomas would simply say, "I'm building a world I believe is worth living in." When he finally released his game, no one noticed, and yet, he didn't grieve, because he had never been doing it for applause. 2 years later, that is the essence of this lesson. Your value is not determined by how quickly the world notices your work. It's determined by whether you are living in alignment with your own compass. Regardless of who is watching, here's a Stoic exercise. This week, choose one action to complete fully without announcing it, sharing it, or seeking acknowledgement for it. Let the doing be the reward. This practice strengthens your independence from external validation, training you to act for the sake of the act itself. Many of us delay doing what we know is right because no one is cheering us on. We wonder, am I still worthy if no one notices? The Stoic answer is simple, yes. If your actions are true to your values, the applause or criticism of others is just noise. What matters is the quiet consistency of living by your own principles. When your actions align with your beliefs, the judgment of others becomes light as dust. External noise turns into scenery. You walk forward, not for an audience, but because the path is worth walking. And each step, taken with intention and integrity, is enough to keep you from being swept away. This discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't come with instant reward. But over time, it builds a foundation stronger than any praise could offer. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of trying to manage how others perceive you. You stop performing and start living. Ask yourself, how much of what I do is shaped by the need to be seen doing it? What would I still choose to do if no one could ever know I had done it? These are the questions that strip away the ego's hunger and leave only what is essential. In the end, value lies in action, quiet, consistent, and aligned with what is right. As the Stoics knew, the truest measure of a life well lived is not found in words, but in the steady rhythm of doing the next right thing, over and over, until it becomes who you are. Conclusion: these 7 lessons are not quick fixes. They are practices, habits you return to day after day, until they shape who you are. Emotional discipline, the power of silence, healing so you no longer react, protecting your energy, letting go of the need to be understood, choosing not to react to every feeling, and placing your value in action. The world will not soften for you. People will misunderstand you, challenge you, even provoke you. But you can grow stronger, not colder, but calmer, clearer, and more deliberate. This is what it means to live with the mind of a Stoic. So, take these lessons with you. Practice them quietly, and one day, you'll notice something extraordinary. The storms still come, but you remain unmoved. You have become, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, like the rock against which the surf crashes, standing unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. That is the peace you deserve. That is the strength you can build. Thank you for walking this path with me today on Stoic Timeless Lessons. These ideas aren't just words, they are tools, forged over centuries, for those who dare to live with calm strength in a restless world. Take them with you, not as theories to remember, but as practices to live. Let them shape the quiet choices you make when no one is watching. Somewhere deep within, you already know the person you're meant to become. Maybe you can't name it yet. Maybe it's still just a faint echo. But if you keep walking with intention, one day you'll meet that self, and when you do, you'll realize they've been waiting for you all along.